The wind rolled heavy across the wide-open fields, carrying with it the scent of dust and dry grass. The sun had just begun to sink behind the horizon, painting the ranch lands in shades of gold and fire. For most folks, it was just another evening, another hard day fading into another restless night. But for Clara, it was the loneliest hour of her life. Her dress was torn, her cheek bruised, and her spirit nearly broken. She sat against the old wooden fence, staring at the endless fields, trying not to cry but feeling the weight of the world pressing down on her. She had trusted the wrong people, given her heart where it wasn't safe, and now she'd been left beaten, abandoned, and hopeless in the very land she once called home, miles away. A cowboy named Luke was wrestling with his own demons. Life hadn't given him much, just a rundown ranch, a beat-up truck, and a name folks barely remembered. He was a single man with calloused hands, a heart that had been cracked more than once, and bills stacking higher than the hay in his barn. Most nights, Luke told himself he was fine. He didn't need anyone. But deep down, the silence of his small house ate at him, reminding him of everything he'd lost, everything he'd never had. That evening, fate guided his path toward Clara. He was driving down the dusty road when he spotted her slumped by the fence, the sunset casting a broken kind of glow around her. He slowed his truck, his gut tightening as he realized she wasn't just resting, she was hurt. Luke pulled over, his boots hitting the dirt as he jogged toward her. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he asked, his voice steady but urgent. Clara looked up, eyes rimmed red, her lips trembling but not speaking. He noticed the blood on her cheek, the torn fabric of her dress, and something inside him twisted anger, protectiveness, and sorrow all at once. Without another word, he offered his hand, and after a hesitant pause, she took it. He lifted her gently, guiding her toward his truck as though she were made of glass. "Who did this to you?" he asked once more, but Clara shook her head, too broken to answer. Luke didn't press her. He just opened the passenger door and promised quietly, "You're safe now." Back at his ranch, Clara sat by the fireplace, wrapped in an old quilt that smelled faintly of cedar and smoke. Luke cooked what little he had: beans, bread, and strong coffee, but the way he set it before her felt like a feast. He didn't ask questions, didn't demand explanations. He just gave her space, giving her the kind of silence that wasn't heavy but healing. For the first time in days, Clara felt warmth seeping back into her heart. She studied the man across from her, his rugged features softened by kindness, his hands rough yet gentle. He was no hero in shining armor, he was just a struggling cowboy, a man as broken in his own ways as she was. And maybe that was what made his care feel so real. Days turned into weeks. Clara found herself helping around the ranch, mending fences, feeding the horses, and slowly rediscovering the girl she thought she had lost. Luke, in turn, found himself laughing again, a sound he hadn't heard from his own lips in years. They were two battered souls, stitched together by hard work and long evenings under the stars. He never treated her as fragile, but as someone strong, someone worth standing beside. And Clara began to see it too, that she was not just a girl left behind, but a woman ready to be loved right. One evening, as the sky burned with the colors of another ranch sunset, Clara looked at Luke and whispered, "Why are you doing all this for me?" He paused, setting his hat on the table before meeting her gaze. "Because no one ever did it for me when I needed it," he said softly. "And because I don't want to live another day without you in my world." Tears welled in Clara's eyes, but this time, they weren't from pain. They were from hope, the kind she thought she'd never feel again. In that moment, she knew the ranch wasn't just a place of work or survival anymore. It was home, because of him. And so, the beaten ranch girl and the struggling cowboy built something together, something raw, imperfect, and beautiful. Their scars didn't vanish, but side by side, they became each other's healing. Sometimes love doesn't arrive with fireworks or promises of forever. Sometimes it comes quietly, on a dusty road, when two broken hearts finally find a place to rest. If this story touched your heart, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us for more heartfelt tales of resilience, love, and second chances. Because just like Clara and Luke, sometimes the best stories begin when everything else feels lost. The ranch had always been a place of sweat and struggle, But with Clara there, Luke felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Each morning the sun rose over the golden fields, and instead of dragging himself out of bed to another lonely day, he woke to the sound of her voice humming softly in the kitchen, or the sight of her hair catching the early light as she stood by the window. Clara, too, was changing. The bruises on her skin faded, but the deeper scars inside her heart still lingered like shadows. Yet, with every fence mended, every calf fed, every simple meal shared across the old wooden table, she felt herself growing stronger. The ranch wasn't just saving her, it was teaching her she was still alive, still worthy of love, and still capable of starting over. Luke was patient. He never pushed her to speak about her past, though sometimes he'd catch the faraway look in her eyes when she thought he wasn't watching. He wanted to ask, wanted to know who had hurt her and why, but he knew some wounds had to heal in silence before words could form. Instead, he showed her care in the way he knew best, by working beside her. When her hands blistered from hauling hay, he wrapped them himself. When she grew tired, he'd take the heavier load without a single complaint. He wasn't a man of many words, but every action spoke volumes. I'm here. I'm not leaving. You matter. Clara found comfort in the rhythm of the ranch. The horses became her therapy, their quiet strength mirroring her own healing spirit. There was one mare, a wild-eyed chestnut, who had once been impossible to tame. The ranch hands had given up on her long ago, but Clara saw something in the animal's restless energy that reminded her of herself. Every afternoon she'd approach the mare slowly, speaking softly, offering trust without expectation. Day by day, the horse began to respond, letting Clara stroke her mane, finally resting her head against Clara's shoulder, as if they both understood they weren't broken, just misunderstood. Luke watched from the fence line, his chest tightening with pride and affection. Clara was not just surviving here, she was becoming the heartbeat of the ranch. One evening, after a long day of branding cattle, they sat on the porch as the sky bled into twilight. Clara leaned against Luke, exhaustion written in every line of her body. I don't know why you've done all this for me, she whispered, her voice fragile in the hush of the evening. Luke tilted his hat back, his arm tightening around her shoulders. Because sometimes God puts people in your path for a reason, he said. I thought I was just saving you that night by the fence. But truth is, Clara, you've been saving me every day since. Her breath caught, her heart stumbling at the weight of his words. She had thought she was the broken one, but here was a man who had been silently breaking for years, and together, they had found something whole. But the past has a way of clawing back. One afternoon, while Luke was fixing the tractor, a truck rolled up the drive. Clara froze when she saw it. It was the same make and color as the one that had left her beaten and alone weeks before. Panic flared in her chest, memories crashing like waves. But before fear could swallow her, Luke was at her side. His hand gripped hers firmly, grounding her. You're safe, he said, his voice steady as steel. No one's ever going to hurt you again. The truck rolled on past the ranch without stopping, but that moment sealed something between them. Clara realized she wasn't facing her demons alone anymore. She had someone who would stand beside her no matter what storm came. That night, under the endless blanket of stars, Clara finally let her tears fall, not out of pain, but out of release. She turned to Luke, her voice trembling yet strong. You made me believe in something I thought I lost forever. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his gaze steady and full of quiet devotion. You didn't lose it, Clara, you just needed someone to remind you it was still there. And as their hands intertwined, the broken ranch girl and the struggling cowboy knew they were no longer defined by what had hurt them, but by what they had built together, a world where love, however fragile, was strong enough to heal. If this chapter moved you, don't forget to subscribe and join us for more stories of love, redemption, and second chances. Every click helps us bring you more heart-touching tales that remind us all, no matter how broken we feel, we are never too far gone to find home again.